So last night I ended up trying to dip my toes back into the DMT pond just a little bit. I gave a very sub breakthrough dose. I wouldn't even call it a breakthrough dose. It definitely wasn't a breakthrough. It was just a dose to kind of get my feet in the water a little bit to just kind of gauge my reaction. This time I'm very careful about trying not to create a really heavy fear response like last time. I don't necessarily know how much more defenses that I have against this. Trying to basically encounter it again and seeing how I'm gonna respond, because if I can kind of pinpoint where the anxiety was coming from, I had this image in my head that I was remembering of one of Jordan Peterson's little clips of him talking. And he was talking about psychedelics and the treatment of trauma. And I guess one of his viewers were asking him a question about that. And then he said, oh, hold on, psychedelics can definitely cause traumatic experiences. And that kind of, that quote kind of was playing over and over in my head in my 4-ACO DMT trip, to the point where it kind of got to me, and I felt like I was losing control. The very typical reaction to these things is fear of loss of control and fear of not being able to control your actions, and that could lead to harming others. And then you start to worry about, oh well, you don't want harm to come to others, so you start brainstorming things that would potentially kind of fix that situation. And sometimes you would think, oh well, I have to die because otherwise other people are going to get hurt or whatever. And you're not ever going to put these actions into actual play. It's just OCD type fears that kind of ruminate in your mind, and you can't sort of get rid of them. They kind of just build up and seem very real, but actually are just the reaction of a mind going, into overdrive. You just have to basically find ways to overcome those thoughts or control them, much like someone with obsessive compulsive disorder and intrusive thoughts has to control those types of symptoms. And it was really stupid. This, I guess he was a Christian, but he was, someone who, I guess, spoke a little bit more intelligently than most Christians do. He kind of just, said that he doesn't understand why, the idea that someone who has these kinds of thoughts isn't necessarily going to act on them, but is just experiencing them as some sort of mental manifestation of their thoughts and I guess tendencies to overthink certain situations. And the guy just couldn't accept that and kind of made a scene on my channel. It's just people that can't really understand OCD and the specific symptoms that happen, and how psychedelics, while you're in a trip, they seem to almost make those symptoms even worse. But then afterwards, you kind of get a reference of how bad those things can be, and so by comparison, your sober mind kind of doesn't really see those thoughts as threatening anymore, just because it's seen it into complete overdrive when you're really, really high on crazy, intense psychedelics. But that was the point that I was trying to make. I wasn't trying to make the point that I was actually going to follow through with whatever fears were going on in my head. I was just saying that those fears were amplified, and somehow this guy equated it to some demonic thing, that I'm actually going to go around and killing people. And he's like, oh, I don't know, or this is why I see it's evil and blah, blah, blah. And I just said, I'm not really interested in converting into Christianity. I have a lot of problems with it. It's not something that resonates with me. The only thing that really resonates with me is Buddhism and occultism, and that would be something that I would be interested to talk about, is if DMT and other psychedelics have any sort of occult potential in terms of the mystical side. I don't really know what I believe. Like, a lot of the times I feel as if I'm a materialist and physicalist, and then other times I feel, maybe there is some sort of crazy magic out there. When I look at bands like Tool and Danny Carey, the drummer, he's an occult practicer, and he does psychedelics as well. So I always kind of had the thought in my head that maybe there's something to it, just because how successful he managed to become with that stuff, and claiming that it has a connection. That's something that I've been kind of trying to put into my own practice in terms of what sort of creative benefits that I can get from exploring psychedelics and certain things like that. I don't really know if it would actually cross into the category of magic or whatever, but maybe, I don't know. A lot of the people like Led Zeppelin and other bands, they were known to have a lot of interest in occult studies and stuff like that. So it's something that I have an open mind to. I haven't really looked into it super deep, just because I have more focus on just creative stuff. But that does tend to tickle my imagination a little bit, and interest to kind of just dabble in I guess those claims of occult stuff actually working in the real world. But who knows, the world might just be the physicalist, materialist world, and all that stuff is just nonsense or coincidence, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, so this trip definitely went on a kind of journey that was kind of visual, but not really terribly so. It was more of a feeling. I remember that I was getting the feeling as if my breathing was being suppressed somehow, and that's normal for DMT experiences. You always feel like you're not breathing anymore, or your breathing has stopped. It hasn't, though. You just have that kind of worry that it does. And in the back of my head, I was a little bit concerned that it would get into the mental little problems that I was having with my last trip that made it unpleasant for me. And unpleasant is really kind of an understatement for those experiences, because while I was going through it, I kind of felt like it was the end or something. It was like an apocalyptic thing in terms of the effect that it's going to have on me. I thought I was certainly going to die, and if I by chance was going to make it out alive, and things would calm down, that I would become this crazy fundamentalist Christian that's pushing his beliefs and cramming that stuff down people's throat. And I was just thinking that experience kind of showed me why I don't really want to subscribe to the Christian faith and stuff like that, because I feel as if it was a bit aggressive in the whole religion itself. That's the impression that I had on it, was that it was always trying to cram its ideas down people's throat. And I just felt like that was something that was aggressive, and the fact that I had to be almost scared into trying to accept that. And that was where my head was going into. A lot of the times in really intense psychedelic trips, I start thinking about religious symbolism and stuff like that. So Christianity is a big one, and somehow the thought is, oh, if I get out of this, I'm going to be a crazy Jesus freak and push the religion on everyone because I know it's the way and stuff. And I just see how really aggressive that is when I'm out of it, and can really understand that. So it really opens my eye to my personal I guess distaste for certain religions, and kind of like other ones because they're less pushy in terms of trying to recruit people and trying to scare people into accepting it. So that's why I kind of really gravitated toward Buddhism and stuff like that, because I felt as if the symbolism and imagery there was a little bit less pushy, and it didn't it didn't kind of force you into anything. I liked it. I liked that about it. So I don't really know what religion I prescribe or subscribe to. I'm just saying that I would identify mostly with Buddhism, I think. But yeah, that's definitely one of the revelations that I had. I had a ton of revelations from that experience. Like it definitely was something that was very positive in my life. Now I've kind of been trying to develop myself, and I've kind of isolated myself socially a little bit temporarily. I feel like I really need my alone time, and so far it's been really cozy for me. I've been getting a lot done. I've been getting a lot of me time. More creative, I guess, ideas are coming to me now, and sort of trying to plan out my future, seeing, you know, what my strategy is going to be to I guess build a career in the things that I enjoy. So I've just been trying to put as much of my energy into just developing my skills, and trying to promote them, I guess. But yeah, so I'm definitely going to eventually embark on like a true breakthrough DMT experience. I don't know when it's going to be. It was good that I test the waters a little bit. I was hoping that I could see a little bit more visuals. I was seeing a lot, but there was nothing that I could really remember. This was at like 6, 7 a.m. when it was still dark out, kind of. I planned on smoking it at earlier in the night, but I kind of fell asleep and then woke up and it was still kind of dark, and I was just like, I'll just try a little bit just to see what happens. And so far it was manageable. It didn't scare me or anything like that. It's definitely a green light to try it again and see how deep I can go without it being a panic, anxiety-full experience. So I'm definitely going to report when I do that. I'm going to try to make it soon. I do want to respect it now, because another thing that Jordan Peterson talked about was the attitude that you should have towards psychedelics is kind of like the Ark of the Covenant, and you know, yeah, there's God in it, but if you touch it, it'll kill you, kind of thing. And that's kind of more of the perspective and sort of the respect that I'm giving towards it now, just because I've seen what it can do to me, and it's very powerful and seems very traumatic, potential inducing. What was interesting was I once read a trip report about this one guy that was talking about how he had a bad trip on mushrooms, and the anxiety and fear that he felt actually was more intense than the experience of him being in a car crash with his wife, and apparently, you know, she passed away from that, and the I guess the anxiety of that situation wasn't as intense as the bad trip that he had with mushrooms. So I think that that's a testament to how you know, very traumatic and powerful these experiences can be for some people. And you know, I think for some people they might possibly develop some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder from that kind of stuff, and that's always my fear when it happens to me, is that I'm going to have crazy post-traumatic stress disorder after that. But I don't know. For this one, I had a bit of fear flashbacks of just, you know, going through certain thought patterns that caused my bad trip, and was just kind of thinking about that while I was out of it. And it was more OCD than anything. My mind got kind of preoccupied with the idea of that, oh, what if this is going to happen again? What if I'm going to go back into that state of mind that I felt that was really, really unpleasant. But now that's faded, and I felt like I just had a bad dream one day, and it doesn't really factor into my psyche anymore. You know, I kind of just forget about it. That seems to be the pattern with any kind of traumatic experience or intense experience that I have. Once it's done, I just remember it as a past dream and something that is barely a part of me, and then I just move on with my life. So That's just how I experience things. I'm sure other people might hang on to traumatic experiences like that. Um, but yeah, I don't know why I'm different, but I think that that's why I can still keep kind of pressing forward with this little journey and trying to explore these things, because I don't want to stop exploring it, because it's too useful to me in terms of creativity, like the things that you see. I don't really see a need to try to stop trying to explore that. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully I will have more to share with you guys.